Niv, it is a joy to have you here. Niv's autobiography is kind of encapsulated in my life because he was one of the very first students that I had in the Los Angeles Youth Orchestra. I think you were 12 at the time or something like that when you began. And he told me, it was his dream at that time to study with Itzhak Perlman. And either that or to become an Olympic swimmer. That's how I always remember you. That was what you told me when you were a kid. And he steadily rose up through the ranks in the couple of years you were with us. And then, he went on, without going deep in the story, the point is he lived his dream. He went to Juilliard and he studied with, I think, Glenn Dictorow and Itzhak Perlman, and got very deep into the instrument, got very interested in composition, started playing all around. And when he came back to Los Angeles, well, actually, even before that, Niv played with us the first time we took the orchestra to Carnegie Hall. And he was a Juilliard student at that time. And there he was playing with us on stage there. It was so fun to have him there, and we needed you to, we needed you too. And it's interesting because I'm going to take the orchestra to Carnegie Hall again not this summer, but the following one. And I'm hoping there's another orchestra grad who's there now, Audrey Park, and she's performing all over the world now in competitions. I'm hoping she might be able to join us and keep that tradition going. Anyway, Niv went on and got his master's, MFA in Juilliard, or was it MFA? Yeah. Yeah, Master Music, right? Yeah, and came back to Los Angeles, and he's built I think just an incredible career as both a solo violinist, concert violinist, and an educator. And he's teaching now at Cal State Northridge. He'll tell you more of what he's doing. He's running music festivals. I recently went to his violin recital, which was absolutely fabulous. It had such variety in it. He played one of my absolute favorite pieces, the Franck Violin Sonata, with such finesse, feeling, and beauty of tone. And then he did his own transcription of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the first movement, and it was beyond hysterical in a good way. I mean, because the idea of one violin trying to capture the whole orchestra and watching him just like leap all over that little fingerboard, it was very imaginative, inventive. He's a great guy. He's also our top violin coach now at the LA Youth Orchestra, which is very powerful and emotional. And the reason I wanted him to speak with you today is that he's discovered something a few years ago. He revealed it to me, which I hope he'll talk about, using slow motion video. And it is incredible. And so I want him to share that with you, and I also want him to talk about what he's doing now. So Niv, welcome. Take it away. Let's first start. Would you like to talk about this, how you got into doing that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Russell. Thanks for having me on here. It's great to see so many people. That's awesome. So basically, this was at the end of the pandemic. I was reading a lot. I was also honestly looking for another project. I was
Mhm.
ready to transition in certain ways as we were coming out of the pandemic. And I read a book or an article or something that was talking about what people are doing in sports when it comes to technology.
Mhm.
And that has always fascinated me, just looking outside of our field and seeing what can we use to help us as musicians. And I figured a place that spends much more money than we do, like any baseball team or other sports team, millions and millions of dollars. Hopefully, they know where they're spending it and how to get the most out of it. So,
I'm just
yeah,
to parallel. I know very little about sports, but during the
me too.
pandemic, I watched that fabulous documentary on the Boston Celtics and found out that just how much time someone who I thought was just a total renegade gangster, Dennis Rodman, how much time they talked about how he spent studying video of every play, just so that he literally knew the style of every single opponent and how they were going to react. So I just wanted to say it makes a lot of sense that you would go there.
And that's something that we have for years done. Like for most of my life, I've had teachers say, record yourself, whether it's
Mhm.
audio or video, and we've had those tools at our fingertips.
Mm.
Do we always use them? No. Should we? Probably. But we have these tools. And, when I was younger and a student, we had less of these tools or less advanced tools. Now we have so much just on our, whoops, sorry, on our phones.
Yeah.
But so
When I first went to UCLA, Niv, I don't think I told you this, but my piano teacher, Salome Arkatov, was a very early adopter of video. And this would have been 1980s. And she insisted on videotaping our lessons.
Mhm.
And I just want to say what was so, for me as a student, because your ego is so fragile, I had such a hard time wanting to watch it, and she forced me to. And I just want to say, and it was nothing like in the depth of what you're doing, but what you're saying is so true, because that is the only way you can discover objectively what you're picking up and not. She would show how she was playing a tone, and then how I was doing it, and somehow until I saw the video and heard it, it really didn't click. Yeah, so I just wanted to.
exactly. And that's something we're going to come back to because that's what we found with the slow motion as well. So, as I was reading about it, I kind of got interested in what technology they were talking about. And early on, what was talked about was the use of slow motion, and that some pitchers were starting to use that. And for the first time, they could actually see the ball leave the fingers and how it left the fingers and how that affects the spin or lack thereof or anything that they might be doing. And I was fascinated. I think I read that part like the night before we were going to go to New Hampshire. That's where my wife's family is, and we were going to go there for a month. And I was like, "Hey, I researched a slow motion camera. It costs a lot of money, but I kind of want to go ahead and get this." And luckily, my wife was more practical than me, and she was like, "Well, maybe you could start not with that camera that like Major League Baseball and others use, but instead, like, can we check if this works for cheaper?" So while we were there during that month, we ended up getting just a just a simple camera, like one of those GoPros that happen to have some slow motion functionality, and a tripod. And I basically, it was one of those like grippy tripods that you could bend. So I just hung it in different places, put it on the ground and this and that, and started looking at things. Now, the premise of why the sports people were using this was to see if their traditions were correct, basically. Because they kind of know how to teach, but it's not as big a deal in sports as kind of having natural talent and then guiding that talent rather than finding a way to pull more talent out of you if you might not have the most talent already. And I was kind of wondering how it is for us because, especially as a violinist, we have hundreds of years of tradition, and we know it works, obviously, because we have great soloists, but I also was told to do the same thing multiple different ways. And it's not to say that we can't do it multiple different ways, but is there a way to figure out what's a more efficient way or a slightly better way to do things? Um, and what I found is that we are better than sports people. Our traditions actually, for the most part, work.
Mhm.
But there are some tweaks and there are some things that we can do to uh, increase efficiency and also to really understand what's going on. Because part of our teaching and pedagogy also comes from saying certain things to the student to produce a certain result, even if that what you're saying is not exactly true. Like,
I just want to stop that. That is a very deep point you make, because so much of it is on a tradition of saying things whether they're true or not, and those are, each school has a particular ideology, and people who study with one ideology will tear and claw at another. And what I think is so fascinating about what you're doing is you're finding a way to get out of that whole mess, right, in a certain way, and
yeah,
really say what's going on.
I'm trying to find what's going on. So one of the first things that I looked at, Because it was slow motion, I needed something that was fast. And there was something that I was always told, which was, so there's three, I'll quickly run you through this. There's three, let's say, basic ways that we can bounce our bow on the violin. One of them is called a brush stroke. That's long and kind of near the frog, like where we hold the bow. And that one, you kind of drop the bow onto the string, make a little smiley face, and take it off the string and back and forth. But it's pretty long. It's not really bounced fully. Then the main bouncing way that you would think of is what we call spiccato. That's more in the middle of the bow. And there you would think of a basketball. Like the bow is naturally bouncy. You drop the bow onto the string and you just kind of guide it, let it bounce naturally. If you have a bow that can bounce, which you should. But like a basketball, if you push harder on it, it's going to then bounce higher and stuff like that. But the basic idea is let it bounce for you. And then there's the third one, which actually goes in a totally different direction, and this is called sautier. Now, sautier, the idea is more like a compressed spring. So we put the bow onto the string, we create pressure, and then as we pull the bow, we suddenly release the pressure for a split second, and then we pound the bow right back into the string as we go back and forth really quickly. That little spring, that little motion actually gets the bow to bounce extremely quickly, like super, super fast. Like the fastest bounced bow and sounding things that you hear on the violin are usually some form of sautier. But every teacher that I had worked with had basically said, you want to keep the bow on the string when you do sautier. So I was curious, am I doing that? How does that actually look? So that was one of the first things I looked at, and I'm going to just
Okay,
share.
one second before we do the
Yeah,
share. I just want to back up because I do have a very sophisticated audience, but I always try to assume, that, they may not know a lot about
sure.
things. So I want to just explain, the bow of a string instrument is not one thing, right?
Yes,
And I think we should first understand that was the thing that blew. It's so incredible what you're doing. A bow is what, like 300 hairs of horse, something like that?
something like
I
that.
think it's
Yeah.
like 300 hairs of horse that you're pulling. And I just, as an amateur string player myself, I want to say the most amazing thing to me about a bow is that if you get a bow that does not have rosin on it, that is free of tree sap, and you play against the strings, I don't care how hard and how forcefully you play, you won't hear a single thing.
Yeah.
That what's really kind of magical is that what you're doing is you're putting a little bit of adhesive on the bow, a kind of gluey tree sap that we call rosin. And what this does is allowing these 300 hairs to grip the string just enough and to let go. So what's really happening when you hear, it's an illusion, just like when you watch, correct me if I'm wrong, but just like when you watch a film, it's an illusion you're seeing. You're actually seeing, all these frames going by pretty fast, but your eye has no way to process it at that speed as individual frames, so you have the illusion of continuous movement. It is the same thing in a way, right, with a string instrument. You're actually hearing very quick, spots of sound that are stop starting, but it's happening at such a fast rate that you hear it as a continuous sound. And this is kind of, to me, the miracle of the way strings produce instruments, and why what you're doing is so revealing, because it's not something we could normally perceive. Okay,
Right.
go on.
So I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I just want to share a few videos with you. Let's see. Can you see my screen, more or less?
We have a finder
Okay.
window
Yeah,
that we need
good.
to get
That's
rid of.
that's all you need right now.
Okay.
So, this is actually from after we actually got the professional slow motion camera. This isn't the GoPro stuff. But I want to show you Sautier, that really, really fast one at 1,000 frames per second, which is about 32 times slower than it's going to be. So let's see.
Great.
That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So you can see that the hair is staying on the string. There's constant contact for the most part with the string. But you can see that the stick is going up and down a lot, right?
You
While
all
the hair
understand
is
this is
staying.
it's moving. This is someone playing.
And this
Okay.
is, by the way, like da 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 da, something super fast. And this is me playing. Now, the thing that really caught my attention, do you see how part of the bow hair is actually moving?
Yeah.
It's coming off the string. Half the bow hair is coming off the string, but the other half is staying on. Um, Now I had a whole crisis, identity crisis around this whole thing because when you're originally taught sautier, you're supposed to have the stick completely flat and you know over the bow hairs. And as you can see, my stick is not. It's tilted away, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm playing with terrible technique." I actually like called up some violinist friends, and we were like, "No, no, it's okay. I was doing something soft." And that is what we do. I was like, okay, good. So it's just like my memory of what I was told. So when you're playing soft, you are going to turn it. When you're playing it flat, it makes it bouncier, actually. So the thing that I found fascinating, though, is it's true, we're going to stay on the string, but we aren't going to stay on the string with all of our bow hair. We're going to stay on the string with part of our bow hair. And I think that that's, to me, what's identifying what's making it sound bouncy is that part of the bow that is jumping out. And you can see it in the stick. The stick is what's going to go up and down drastically. Um, but that was one of the first things that I found, and I had never seen it. You can see the bow hair rippling,
Yeah.
and that I'd never known was a thing either. So
Now, is that from the bow? Is that from the wrist turning it, or just actually just
my
at the
wrist
speed
is
you're doing it?
turning it a little bit right
Uh-huh.
now. I don't know if I have one here with it flat. Um, but yeah, here you're gonna see, yeah, it's still a little bit turned. I think I don't have in this spot right here all the ones, but this is twice as fast. This is 500 frames per second. It's only 16 times slower. So it's still super, super fast.
Incredible.
Yeah. Um,
What just blows me away is that you can see the individual hairs of the bow.
oh
You
yeah,
know.
you can
Yeah.
see everything.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that I found really helpful for me was I started working on my left hand, and I started working on how does it look and what sounds good and is most efficient. And what I came to find is that let's see, which one was it? I think it was this one. The most optimal thing to do is to have your fingers, one fingernail above the string, if it's the next finger to come down.
Wait,
That's
wait. Could
about
you
the
could you
height.
explain that one more time slowly? I didn't get that.
So here, I'm gonna slow this down. We're gonna go here. So if you look, when I'm putting down my second finger, the finger that's coming down right
Yeah.
now,
Hmm.
my third finger, the next finger,
Hmm.
is about a fingernail above the string at this point. This gives
Hmm.
me enough height so that I have strength to put it down,
Uh-huh.
but also the speed to be able to play very quickly. And now my pinky right now looks very high off the string, right? But by
Uh-huh.
the time my third finger is down,
It's moved down also
now
a
it's
fingernail
also
above.
moved down to about a fingernail above. Now I don't want to have my pinky be, like when I play my first finger, the pinky's very high. I don't want to have it too close because then my hand will get tight. So it was about looking at this and seeing what's the optimal height for this that gives me speed,
Mhm.
strength, and looseness in the hand. And a fingernail is about the right height for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
people need to understand that, you know, a lot of times, especially in our students, we see students who have their fingers way up in the air. And,
yes.
you know, it makes it very impossible for them to execute the music because it takes too long to get the fingers down. But on the other hand, if you hold it, like you're saying, too close, like if it was less than a fingernail, you wouldn't be able to have the force, right, to be able to
Exactly,
articulate
of
the note.
course. So I'm just gonna speed through to start it at least. But this is what it looks like from a little further away. So you can kind of see this is from behind, but a more realistic view of how high it looks. Um, but this is something that I worked really hard on, and part of working on this actually really helped fix my thumb for
Mm.
years. And this is like through college and studying with the best teachers and all of that. I always gripped a tiny bit with my thumb.
Uh-huh.
I still played the hardest pieces. It didn't really prevent me from doing anything,
Uh-huh.
but I had the hardest time correcting that and I just kind of gave up on it. in looking in slow motion, I started working on the back of my hand,
Hmm.
um, which I don't really have a video here now that I think about it because I have the front of it, but we can see it in some other people's playing in the catching mistakes one. Um, I was working on the back of the hand. This is not me, this is someone else, but I was working on what will be the most efficient and look the best. And as I worked on that, that actually solved my thumb problem. And that's when I was really sold about this whole um, slow motion thing because I was able to work on something completely separate and fix other
Wow.
tasks.
So could you explain a little more detail? I'm
Yes.
not sure I understand what you were doing then differently with the thumb, what you decided to do.
So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second so I can show you guys. So when we play,
Yeah, hold on, let me
want
share myself so that people can see it clearer.
okay. So when we play, we want the thumb to be relaxed. Okay. I'm holding it the opposite. Obviously, we're holding like this, so we want the thumb to be relaxed. What a lot of students will do is grip, and that really prevents you from moving around on the instrument. I had it facing like this, but I wasn't necessarily gripping, but I kind of wanted to open it up a little bit,
Hmm.
relax it a little bit more. But it was hard to just concentrate on that. So what instead I did was I concentrated on my fingers at first. I concentrated on making sure every finger was really um, on its fingertips when I was playing, especially the pinky. Because the pinky, for a lot of us, we will do very well on these three fingers, and then the pinky will come down like this. And you see it in professionals too,
Hmm.
because it's a real pain in the butt to fix it to go like this.
Hmm.
Takes a lot of extra effort. But I
Yeah.
worked on that. That was the first thing I worked on. Then I worked on my knuckles, the height of my knuckles, so that they would be above the fingerboard and just in one place so that I'm just dropping the fingers down. And
Hmm.
my theory was there's gravity, let's let gravity do the work and do the least motion possible. Um, the other thing that I did when we switched strings, pretend this is my lowest string and this is my highest string. So when we switch strings, the angle of our fingers changes a little bit.
Hmm.
Most people, or a lot of people, the way we're normally taught is to make sure that the way our fingers land feels the same.
Hmm.
So if I'm on the G string, I land like this. If I'm
Hmm.
on the E string, I land the same way. But look at what happens to my knuckles when I do that. They move completely to the other side. And if I'm trying to play fast, that's a lot of extra motion.
Hmm.
So what I decided to do, and this is what a lot of other people do, but it's not what we are usually first taught, is to close our fingers but keep the knuckles in the same place.
Hmm.
So the G would be like this, the D is a little more closed, A is a little more closed, and E is very closed
Yeah.
to the point where I'm actually even overturned sometimes.
Yeah. So you have
Um,
to change the curl of your fingers as
so I'm
you
changing the
go.
curl of my fingers rather than, and not changing the back of my hand, rather than changing the back of my hand to serve the curl of my fingers.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
fixed my thumb. How, I can't tell you. I can just tell you that it did.
So you
Fixed it
found
so
by
it
doing
stayed.
that you didn't need to grip as much with your thumb because the
Naturally, my
finger
thumb relaxed.
the torque from the fingers was doing a lot of that.
Yeah. And all the work that I did was to look at what I was seeing and I tried to make it look correct.
Mm.
Make it look like what I imagined in my head would be the correct technique based off of what I'd seen from watching, hundreds, thousands of hours of other people playing, based off of what I had been told, different things like that, and then putting it together. Um, so I want to share with you something of how it works when we work on it with someone.
Hmm.
So, for example, actually, let's do this one. This is going to be someone trying to do a crescendo, which is getting louder. I think it was getting louder and softer, maybe, on an up bow. So I'm going to start it off. She did the down bow, and this is the first shot that we did, okay? So now she should be trying to get louder with the bow. Now, to set this up, there's several ways that we produce sound. One way that we can control our sound is through the, can you guys see the mouse at all when I'm pointing like this?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. So the closer we get to the bridge, the louder we get. The closer we get to the fingerboard, the softer we get. So controlling our point of contact is one way,
Mhm.
but the main two ways are going to be bow speed, how fast we move our bow, and bow pressure, how much weight we put in. So I want you to just watch this one up bow, and this is a professional who's absolutely fantastic player. And she just wanted to check to see if she was doing everything the way she thought she was doing. And I want you to not just notice the speed of the bow, but notice what her arm looks like as she's doing it and her whole body language. And this is really slow. This is, I think, also at uh, oh, that cut to the beginning. Okay, good. So, oh
What's
wait,
the speed of that one? Did you say?
this one,
I was just curious.
that might have been 1,000 frames per second.
Mhm. Okay.
Sorry, I showed you the wrong one. Let me show you the first one. This is the actual first one. Okay, so here's the first one, and now she's gonna do the up bow, and then I'll show you the second one. So beautiful bow
Yeah,
change.
God, the wrist
Everything's
is
looking
amazing.
great. This is someone that knows what they're doing. Now she should be trying to get louder and then softer, but especially the louder is gonna be very clear to you in a moment. So you see how her arm looks. It's
Mhm.
kind of in a nice balanced position, but not too high, not too low. And her body's kind of straight up and down. And yeah, it looks very relaxed.
Mhm.
Looks effortless.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'll show you the corrected version. She saw that and she was like, oh, that doesn't look like what I thought it looks like.
Hmm.
Now here's the corrected version. Again, here's the end of the down bow. Now I want you to notice immediately what she's going to change in her bow hold, or in her arm.
Shoulder. Huh.
Immediately raises her elbow, leans forward, and you're going to see the speed of the bow be completely different. See how much faster she's moving her bow
Mhm.
and how much more energy and engagement there is in just the body language of it. And this translated into a huge difference in the sound. I can't give you the sound because,
Yeah, slow
that's
motion.
that's very, yeah. Um, but that was her trying to crescendo, and now she's slowing it back down and lightening up. She's raising her arm a lot
Uh-huh.
because the frog is the heaviest part. So she needs to decrease the weight, decrease the speed in order to make it soft again. It's a completely different looking stroke just from one to the other. And I can even put them side by side for you for a second,
Yeah. Cool.
so that you can see it. And they should be, about the same speed.
Mhm.
Of course, it's two different times, so you never know, right?
Right.
But let's move this to the
Yeah, but
right
we're just going to be
spot.
looking at the shoulder and seeing how it rises.
Yeah, and we'll go there, and now you can see immediately the change immediately at the start. This is the good one. This is the bad one. Left is bad, right is good. Um,
Wow. Yeah, it really helps to see them side by side. Wow.
it's a huge difference and this was just from one moment where she looked at it once and was like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted to do." And we talked it over and she was like, "Okay, I think I know what I'm going to do." And she played it and this was immediately the fix. And that's because, it's a professional. We see these things and that's the value for us as professionals and students as well, to see the difference and see what are we actually doing?
Hmm.
What are we trying to do and are we accomplishing it
Wow.
on a scale that we normally don't have time to look at?
Hmm.
Um, so that was really fun to look at.
Yeah.
One of my earliest ones, talking about sound waves, I attached, this is not my good violin, to be clear, um, but I attached a piece of tissue, just stripped the tissue, taped it on, and
Hmm.
then played. And this is over the F holes. So this is
Mm.
where the sound, the air comes out, and you can actually see it vibrating. Um, from the sound that the bow is
Yeah.
producing.
Yeah, I meant to say one of the fascinating things to me when you were showing the left hand thing was to watch the string that you've stopped, or watching that vibrate, and you can see it vibrate in all its parts. It was really
Yeah.
kind of fascinating.
So one of the things that is hard for us to see, and this is again where filming it in slow motion really helps, is the underside of our hand, where the thumb is. Most teachers, it's really hard for us to see this because this is pointed down usually. And I'm short, so I can actually see underneath, but most teachers are coming from above. And even
Mhm.
for me, it's sometimes hard to see. So this I filmed. This is a passage from a short little part of Sibelius Concerto. And you can just see the motion of the fingers. And what you're gonna have to imagine is the motion of the thumb. I can tell because I play the violin that I'm doing the right motion, but I wish I could capture from the other side the motion. But the thumb is really contributing to the motion of the bow as much as the other fingers. And that's what we want to see. So
I
this
think
was
you can see that even from the
inspirational.
underside.
And the other fun thing that you can see with this is you can see, if you look carefully, that it's a bit whiter right over here. And you can see how much pressure we put on our thumb
Oh,
at the beginning, because the blood is literally not going to that area. You can actually see it
uh-huh.
and see how much we actually push and pull, because we tell our students to push and pull on the bow to create a good bow stroke.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this is from Mendelssohn Concerto. This one I found it fascinating to, if you look at my muscle over here, you can actually see the muscles working really hard. But with broader motion, what we usually are looking for is how smooth is everything going to be? Is there any part that is sticking out as being stiff that shouldn't be stiff? This is a pretty fast passage with a lot of force, um,
Hmm.
but it's still smooth from all the way from my bicep or tricep to the forearm to the fingers. There's a constant motion, especially in the wrist, and nothing ever really stops.
And it also needs to be right a constant pressure to keep the bow from lifting
Yes,
and everything if it's you're doing a fast passage, right?
exactly, exactly. So this is one angle. This is, I think, yeah, this is the other angle. Same passage from the other side that we look at.
It's just amazing.
Just to kind of see what's going on. This was a part of a video that I had, so this was a demonstration of a good thing. Here, this is something that normally I wouldn't want to see. So if you look at the wrist, I'm going to just control it this time for you, but the wrist, you want it to move down gradually. And if you look over here, I suddenly, though I'm in the middle of the bow,
Hmm.
end up with a super
You're at the
retracted
bottom.
wrist. This is what we usually want at the tip. But what
Mhm.
I'm doing is something very specific here where I wanted a lot of energy right there to whip the bow. And so that's why I was purposely shoving from the wrist. And even so, you can see that everything's moving smoothly to create this motion. But this was to create that extra bit of speed
Mhm.
on one of the notes and set me up for success for the rest of the passage.
So
Um,
when you know using this as a pedagogical tool, you could really be giving students the feedback for
as they
the
proceed.
timing of how their wrist starts to
Yeah,
move because everyone's very uneven when they first begin to learn to play, right?
even intermediate and advanced players, what you'll see is that there's going to be a place in the hand that isn't smooth a lot of the time. And so what we do is we basically look for that,
Hmm.
look to see, are you moving what you think you're moving? Are you using your wrist properly? One more thing that I found fascinating, you can see this is going to be take one, and then the last one's going to be take four. This was a student that came and wanted to work on vibrato. So we're looking at the left hand. And this was a student that was having some trouble getting the vibrato to sound good. Now, as you can see, there's some motion. Vibrato is when we move our hand and our finger back and forth, and that creates that beautiful ah type sound. Um, I think that even if you aren't hearing it, you can see that there's an inconsistency
Yeah.
in motion right now. And there's a disconnect between the finger and the rest of the hand. So she's using a lot of motion, but what it sounded like in the room was I could see her moving her hand, but I wasn't hearing the vibrato for every single motion that she was doing. And that's what you're looking for when you're doing vibrato. You want every motion to count.
So then
So
how would you correct, how would you give the feedback to correct that?
So first of all, she just watched it and she immediately was like, "Oh, I see what my teacher was trying to tell me," because she was studying with someone and she came just for one session.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, it was a realization point. And then we were talking about she uses an arm vibrato. She was switching to an arm vibrato. I use a wrist vibrato, but it doesn't really matter. But I was talking with her about the connection between her entire arm, how it connects to the wrist, how it then goes up through the finger to each joint in the finger, and then that final joint, that's the joint that we want to move. That's what's controlling it. Um, and where it is on the string, that's really important. So we kind of worked through not really isolating, but kind of concentrating on each aspect of her hand to see how she can increase the connection between her elbow all the way to her finger. And then I'll show you the end result. It's not perfect, but this is where we got to after this is her fourth try. You can already see that the hand is moving more as one unit.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to help her sound. Her vibrato sounded so much better.
Hmm.
Again, I'm gonna put this side by side for you. And
Yeah.
this is the same spot, same passage, same speed, to the best of a
Mm-hmm.
human being's ability to copy themselves. Um, but the difference was drastic in her sound.
Hmm.
And this she was basically able to do with some help from me, but also she said it herself. It was seeing it by herself. The left one is the old one, the right one is the new one. Seeing it by herself, she was able to change so much of it, and
So
then with
dramatic.
a little bit
So
of magic.
dramatic.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big difference. And after that, she was able to understand more what her teacher was looking for as well.
Hmm.
So we use this. I try, especially if I'm working with students that aren't my own, I'm
Hmm.
trying to make sure that I'm um, helping with what their teacher is saying. I might still add some things that I think are true and all of that, but I'm mostly trying to conform to, I'm not trying to confuse the student, let's put it that way. Trying
So
to find
yeah, so I mean, this is something you'll use with your own students, but you're basically this is a consulting business you have. Is that
yes,
what?
yes, yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we actually did this with students from Music Academy of the West. There were some students from USC, from Curtis, from
Uh-huh.
Eastman. One of them had just won a job with Chicago Symphony, I think. And we just worked in detail on just perfecting their technique. And that little tweak, especially at that level, which was basically at a pre-professional to professional level, actually makes a substantial difference in their sound, their articulation, and everything else. So it's really helpful for people to get to see it. And so right now, what I do is I'm building up a YouTube channel with different things,
Mm.
usually using slow motion, but also some non-slow motion things, and just kind of talking about how to approach the violin and what I'm learning from this. And it's been really fascinating and really helpful for me and for my students. And the really fun part is seeing it in slow motion has made it easier for me to see it at full speed
Hmm.
and to determine what's going on
Uh-huh.
at full speed because I've seen it both ways.
You know what's under the hood now. Yeah, that's very
Part of what's under
interesting.
the hood. And people
Yeah.
can see it for themselves.
Mhm.
So we've been doing that, and it's been
You
really
know, when you showed it to me, I was just so fascinated by just being able to see what the bow is actually doing, because it goes, in real world, it goes so fast, and it is an illusion. You don't see that, but you can really see the bow gripping and releasing, gripping. You can see all of that. But what I didn't realize was how helpful this has been for the entire picture for you, how it had helped your left hand, how it helped your, the placement of your arms, all of that. And that's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely continues to be a discovery of and search for what makes the most sense,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of stuff on violin where we have to juggle tension versus release. So in the left hand, and you guys can do this at home actually. I want you to just hold your hand neutrally, okay, and wiggle your fingers. Okay, just hold it, like lift it up and wiggle. Okay, that's pretty loose. Now I want you to um, bring your hand forward, basically stick your wrist out, and then try to do this. It's going to be more tense, right? You can feel it in your whole hand. Everything's tense. If you go back to neutral, um, actually, let's do it like this. Neutral is usually if you just raise your hand, it looks like this. Do you see how the wrist is out a little bit? This is pretty relaxed. But on the violin, what we are actually looking for is for this to be ruler straight. So what we actually have to do is bring our wrist in just a little bit in order for this to appear ruler straight.
Hmm.
This is even more relaxed. And if you go almost all the way, but without tension, just like letting your hand relax like this, and then do this, that takes no tension. But that's horrible on the violin.
I was just going to say that's when we get the students that do this, right?
Yes.
So,
So there's a way we have
because
to
they
kind of
can't reach the strings that way. Yeah.
juggle how much we move our wrist.
Mhm.
And a little bit in is perfect, but that actually has more tension than a little bit further in. But what happens then is the problem of how our fingers land. They land on fattier parts of our finger rather than parts that are close to the bone. If you think of hard objects, they vibrate better than, like mushy objects. So we want to be closest to the bone. All these theories about sound and sound production actually affect all those things. So even though it would feel more relaxed to play like this, we're going to play like this.
Mhm.
Um, and even though it is easier to put your fingers down here and then change them to the E string like this, it's going to mess up your speed. And so this way of playing that I like, there's a little bit of added tension in your hand,
Mhm.
but I'm trying to balance it with a much better sound.
Yeah.
And as I teach it, I'm also very well aware to talk with the students about tension, because a lot of the time when we first work on getting this shape really correct, there's tension in the hand beyond what there needs to be. And so I tell them, are you tightening? Okay, now relax this muscle.
Hmm.
Because you don't actually need to tighten this muscle. But when we're first trying to manipulate our hand into place, we grip a lot. And so then it's working on that and making sure that no injuries happen, right? But a
I want
lot
to just interject that, if you've never played a violin or viola, you don't know how incredibly unnatural and awkward it feels when you first do it. It is just like it's the worst design for the human body, you think, until you figure all of these things out. It's not like a cello or a guitar where your body just kind of falls on it in the same way, to me at least.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
And my wife Leia helps me. She's the one behind the camera, and we kind of come up with these different experiments, and we kind of see what works, what doesn't work. And it's not just visuals, it's going by the sound.
Hmm.
What gives the best sound, what gives the best facility, um, and going from there.
You know, I don't know if you've done this, but if not, let me make this suggestion. As I am seeing everything you're doing, I play classical guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
guitarists would be so into what you're doing because there is so much of the same. It's different because there's an angle you hold the violin. Whereas guitar, the goal is to be perpendicular, but the question of how high you hold your fingers is that is one of the main things for the left hand, and of course the thumb, how you release and how you make a smooth shift. We didn't talk about shifting, but I bet that's another thing that would
That's a
be
whole
very
nother thing. That's
helpful.
my last video was on like looking at the a good shift versus the three
I
major.
bet you there's a lot to learn with that. But
Abs-
also the right hand with the guitar, which is one of the most complex instruments in classical music because the angles of the fingers and the thumb are constantly shifting. And I'm just getting very excited as you showed that because I'm realizing that it would take this kind of slow motion photography for most people to even know what they're really doing.
Absolutely. And that's the idea behind it is just checking um is being able to slow things down from reality to check if you're actually doing it at that high level. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna need to run quite
Yeah.
soon because I have
Does
to
okay?
serve one
Does anyone have any
vendor.
questions
But
quickly, and then I
yes,
want to show
please.
you your links.
Yes.
If so, just unmute yourselves and ask.
Yes,
Um,
please.
Gloria, go ahead.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're still muted. The
Sorry.
Zoom.
Okay, I'll be quick. This was the most powerful and useful way to truly understand the correct and incorrect use of the violin. And I'm sort of a kinesthetic learner. I have to touch it and feel it. You did the most amazing learning experience that I've had in a very, very long time. Thank you.
You. My pleasure, really. It's been fascinating for me.
And be well. And I don't know if I could say shalom, but I'll say
Shalom.
shalom to everybody. Thank you very, very much. I'm done.
You're very
Before Niv leaves, I just want to share, and I can put these links in the chat. But I want to share these websites he's provided. So this is your consult. Is this what
This
it's?
is for the IFRA technique, yeah, and
Yeah,
there's a few
wonderful. I
more
for technique.
that changes it. That's what we called the project, and we're gonna keep adding to it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then and this is in the website. Oh no, these are you. This is your YouTube.
YouTube, it's also connected to the website, but yes.
Okay, no, I'll give that. And then let's briefly talk about your festival.
Yeah, so we have our festival. We're gonna have concerts in June. If any of you happen to be in New Hampshire, near Dartmouth, Hanover area, please come. We bring in, it's my wife and I, and we bring in seven other fantastic musicians from across the country, and we do chamber music. So we have 10 days that we're rehearsing and performing together, but the performances happen in about a 5 day window, three different programs, plus community events, which I need to update on the website. But there
Okay.
are going to be community events, and we will have a new feature actually in a local magazine that came last year and took photos. And yeah, we're doing some really fun, bigger chamber pieces this season.
Okay, and I see you've got YouTube
Yeah,
animations for that
yeah,
as well.
and that's basically stuff from our live performances. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
Niv, are any of those of you doing solo violin?
Um,
Or
not,
are there any
but there
YouTube?
are. If you look, just look up my name, you'll find it. I have
Because
my own channel as well. Yeah.
I, like some other people here, heard you perform at Russell's concert with the kids, and you were phenomenal. I really recommend people listen to this guy. He's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I have some stuff on my other YouTube, but honestly, I have random videos floating around throughout YouTube, not just on my channel. That's why I gave these because there's some of the more recent recordings are actually from the festival, for example, and stuff like that. I also have an album. I think I sent Russell the link to my website that links
Yeah, I'm
directly
putting
to the
all these in the
album,
chat now.
and you can hear the whole album there. It's on one of the violins of hope, which is an instrument that survived the Holocaust and has been restored. And all the pieces were either composers affected by the Holocaust or other prominent Jewish works, all from the lifetime of that instrument. And we're actually doing a lot of the first week of June. If you look up Philharmonic. Philharmonic Society of Orange County. We are doing a whole bunch of Violins of Hope programming. I think all of it is free. So if you guys happen to be in that area and want to come down, I'll be doing about half of those events from May 31st through June 10th.
Fantastic. I've given the links to your website and for your duo with Leah. His wife plays bassoon, and she's just a master musician herself, and the two of them, play together. It's just great.
We do everything together. The duo is together, the festival's together, I for Technique is together, Violins of Hope was together as well. So like all of it is together.
Hence dyad. Not triad, dyad. Niv, thank you so much for being with us, and I hope we get to have you back. This was just so informative, and I just want to say again how exciting it is, and I hope this is something I know you're very busy as an artist and educator, but this is something really worth pursuing because it's unique, and it's going to make a big difference in the world, in the music world.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's so good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.